So we have one more composition for you guys we're going to do. This song is actually a song that was composed about really serious subject matter, actually. And when I first wrote the song, it was actually met with a lot of contempt from a lot of people in this particular culture. We play stretch music is what we call our music, but it basically is a form of jazz or a type of jazz. And the song was written after an experience I had in my native New Orleans with a group of police officers. Pulled me over one night, pulled a gun on me for no reason, basically told me to strip down and lay on the ground and to, I guess, let them do whatever they wanted to do. I hadn't done anything wrong. I was coming home from a gig with a band called Soul Live, which is an incredible group. This squad car followed my car for about 8 or 9 blocks, pulled the vehicle over. Next thing I know, my car is surrounded. The lead officer is out of the car. He's got the gun pointed to the back of my head, and he's telling me to get out of the car and take my clothes off and lay on the ground. So I hadn't done anything wrong, so I asked him, why he was pulling me over, why he was stopping me. And the guy told me to shut up, and that he was my boss, and he was the authority, and I was supposed to do as I was told. I had a serious problem with that, and I told him I paid my taxes, and as far as I was concerned, I was his boss. He needed to let me know why he pulled me over. Now, they didn't like that, and the thing is, it's scary that we live in a society that usually applauds when I say something like that, right? Because, it says a lot about the space that we have to all navigate. The long and short of it is, we went back and forth. I told him that I wasn't going to comply with that. He told me, again, he was the authority, I was supposed to listen, and that if I didn't comply with what it was he was telling me, that my mother was going to have to pick me up from the morgue. And to me, I think, that kind of crossed the line, and we went back and forth. I told him I didn't appreciate that. A higher ranking officer ended up showing up a little bit later, and he realized something was awry because you had multiple squad cars with a guy at gunpoint at 3 o'clock in the morning, and no one decided to radio the precinct. So he realized something was wrong and told me that I was allowed to go home. I'll never forget, I didn't live in New Orleans at the time, but I get back to my mother's home, and I'm going through like a litany of emotional spaces because you're angry, but you're also hurt. I think linearly we can all kind of conclude why it was that they pulled me over, but that wasn't the conclusion that I wanted to come to in that moment. The officers sort of threw a myriad of racial epithets and slurs in my direction. It was also kind of weird because one of the officers was a black guy. And so it was strange for me to see them saying those things, but him not saying anything, as if I guess I was the only guy, the black guy in that particular moment. We know Stockholm Syndrome is real, and so that was a very strange thing. I got home. I didn't want to tell my mom. I didn't want to tell my grandmother because I was afraid that if I told them that they would be afraid that every time I went to do a gig, that this could be my reality, and I didn't want them to feel fear for that, so I didn't say anything. And stayed up that entire night, paced back and forth, thought about going back and doing something really terrible, and realized that the smarter thing to do would be to try and compose a song that accurately depicted the range of emotions that I went through in that moment as a means of illuminating people, or I should say re-illuminating people, that these things still happen. But I think in light of recent events, I don't think I need to say that to too many people in this office because I know that you're aware of what's going on around you. I also want to say, I think a lot of times what ends up happening and something that I see as a sort of a strange dynamic is I'm born in New Orleans. I'm born in the Ninth Ward. There are a lot of people that, would make a pretty big argument that area is pretty much, it's not first world, is a good way to put it. And the way that area is policed, and when I was growing up, the things that I saw people enduring and going through at the hands of police, it actually scars you and really affects you. But I think if you don't grow up in that type of chasm or in that type of context, I think a lot of times based on the things that you see was disseminated to you about other cultures and other communities, makes you kind of believe a narrative that isn't true. And a lot of times I found when I first wrote this song, which was like 2008, people would react to me like what I was sensationalizing something or what I was saying wasn't true. And a lot of times they would back those type of comments up with giving examples of things that like they saw on television. And that was a really hurtful experience because I realized that a lot of times the things that are disseminated about this particular culture is that we're always okay with the criminal element and that we're all a part of the criminal fraternity, and that type of unlordable behavior is acceptable to everyone in the area, so that when someone, actually a police officer, goes into one of these neighborhoods and pops a kid, If you don't live in that culture, you automatically think the kid did something to deserve it, or that the cop is just taking out the trash, and it's completely untrue. So we're gonna play the song right now. I want everyone to know that the reason that I tell this story and the reason that we play the song is not to build derision or hate. It's actually to make sure that we reach a consensus on how to move forward. Because we all have, this generation, I'm looking at a lot of younger people in the room, we all have a really great opportunity, a profound opportunity in front of us to be able to create the reality that we all talk about. No one's saying or thinks that, in 2 years, it's, Washington, D.C. or New Orleans, Louisiana or Harlem is going to be a utopia. But at the end of the day, the type of work that's required to actually walk hand in hand together to reach that has to start now. And if it doesn't start now, then your children and my children are going to inherit these issues, right? So the last song that we're going to do for you is a song that was composed about the overwhelming racism that a lot of brown, black, especially African Americans in this country specifically, go through at the hands of police officers. It's called Klux Police Department. Lawrence Fields on piano. Corey Fonville on drums. Chris Fun on the bass. Dominic Minix on the guitar. 21 years old. Braxton Cook on the alto saxophone. 24 years old. Is that right? Okay. Elena Pender Hughes on the flute. 20 years old. My name is Scott ATunde Adjuah. Thank y'all so much. We'll see y'all next time. Thank y'all.